Ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Love's the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do,
Just what to do, just what to do.
if what you're feeling is really true,
Is it really true? Is it really true?
just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.
Change is found, change is found. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time, this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Love's the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geri Petito Show. Everyone and anyone who knows me knows I am the author of I'm Not an Addict, I'm Just an Ass. I'd rather be a smartass than a dumbass. Because, guys, 33 years ago, I was a dumbass. But today, this past July, 33 years later, I'm now a smartass. Thank you, God. And yes, the word ass is in the Bible at least 40 times, and it means donkey, and that's what I was. I'm saying all that to say this. You know, there's a lot of people out there still struggling. I'm a nutritional health coach, and I'm also a recovery coach. All my services to you are free. Please, please reach out. I want you to know that someone is listening. If you think my book can help someone, because I sure do, you can go right to Simon & Schuster's bookstore, Archway Publishing, BAM, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and you can go to my website, www.geripetito.com, and please subscribe to the Geri Petito Show YouTube channel. I just want to say this. If any of you really, truly need my book and you cannot afford it, truly, truly, please reach out to me about that as well. I am here to help you. Before I introduce my incredible guests, I'd like to just give a shout out to a few of my sponsors. Okay, I've got Stormin Norman Selden, 732-245-4777, www.storminnormanselden.com. Booking dozens of attractions for concerts and performances on venues of all sizes. Guys, he's got from a 5 to 12-piece band, okay? And he's incredible on keyboards. He's incredible. He's an incredible pianist, unbelievable. Him and his Steinway pianos, okay? A lot of people don't know this, but he helped get Larry Chance from the Earls back in the day started. Rest in peace, Larry. You became a good friend of mine, and we all love and miss you. Remember the song, Remember Then? That was Larry Chance, guys. And Stormin Norman helped get him started back in the day. Okay, then we've got Ken Ryan and Linda Garofalo, The Way It Used to Be. Singing songs from the 50s to the 80s, a tribute show to the greatest music and voices of all time. Also sings Elvis for me. That's right. Ken will sing Elvis for me. He's a huge Elvis fan as well. Okay, I just had to say that. And these two people are beautiful people inside and out, and they do a lot of fundraisers, and they're just amazing people. And then I've got, let's see, okay. And then I'm going to name one more, Michael D'Amore. Singer, songwriter, performer, entertainer. www.michaeldamore.com. And he's also off the charts, incredible, ridiculous. So if you go to his website, you could check out his music. You could buy some of his songs. All right? So now, without further ado, I want to introduce my incredible guest back on the Geri Petito Show. All right? And, all right, we'll get to all that. So Tom Locke, say hello to everybody.
Hi, everyone.
How are you?
Really good, thanks. Really good.
Okay. So before we get into, what I'm going to talk about, because you know me, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your first book, and now your second.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm originally from Toronto. I now live in Vancouver. Moved out to Vancouver in 1984 and got involved in the entertainment industry. So I've been in that industry for quite a few years. As to the book, music was always my escape, if you will, my passion. And thanks to COVID, I had an opportunity to take some notes that I'd written over 25 years and put them into a book. and that's how Moments in Time came about. So it was a great experience for me doing that, and then it's evolved, as we'll talk today, into a second book, thanks to the support and the recommendations from a lot of friends and contacts over the last couple of years.
So, okay. So, tell us a little bit about your first book first. The
Sure.
year it takes,
Well,
all the years and what's in it.
sure. Well, Moments in Time, with Driven Moments in Time, my first book, it's on the 50s, 60s, and 70s. There's a copy of the book there. It was, I would look at it as almost a disguised legacy piece in the fact that this story, the evolution of rock and roll, should not be lost. And we should be not just entertaining ourselves, the generation that was part of it, but new generations to understand how music has evolved. So that was really my purpose. The book was not about me. It's about the music we grew up with and became a part of who we are. So that was the real focus of that book.
So, I loved your first book. You sent it to me, autographed it. Amazing. I had one little tiny problem with it. Okay? Someone I believed was missing, of course, and that happened to be Elvis. So, what this guy here did for me is off the charts. So, in his
No.
second book, not only did he add Elvis, he even gave me a shout out. Right, Tom?
You're right. Thanks, thanks to my first books, people like Jerry and others, DJs and personalities throughout North America, I came connected with, close to, or reconnected with because of my entertainment days, have been of great value to me. And they're the ones who encouraged me, say, hey, we want you to do another one. You have so many stories. You've written over 1,000 stories, and they've been aired for 25 years. Can you do another one? And can you move it up a little decade in the 80s? And then I had some people like Jerry very directly saying, and make sure you have some Elvis stories in this. So we do have Elvis stories in it.
So, all right. So, of course, tell everybody a little bit about the Elvis stories that are in it. Come
Okay.
on.
Well, what I tried to do with the Elvis stories, it's the story of the record, but more so what went behind it. I think a lot of people don't know, and I know Jerry does, because and good Elvis fans know that he was really driven by the film industry. I mean, he was an usher. He went in and he just studied acting. He wanted to be a serious actor, not a
I know.
novelty, thing. He wanted to really get involved with it and thought he had, the chops to do so. And but down the line, I mean, I got to take my hat off, rightly or wrongly, to Colonel Tom Parker. He could see, hey, maybe I can get the best of both worlds. I'll entertain Elvis, get him in the movie side, but I'm going to push movies, or records at the same time as part of the movies. So he was Elvis, went along with it for sure, but some of them are fairly frivolous. But there was a couple of them that I thought were really, really well done, and then that was in his early days, and I was hoping that he would get some more serious parts, but unfortunately, it didn't materialize. And
What
yet,
about the movie Charo? What about that movie?
well, that's an interesting movie. I don't know a lot about it. All I know is that it was something that he was all in on.
Yeah, he didn't sing
Just-
in that movie.
Yeah, I know. I mean, even at the beginning, "Love Me Tender," and what he did in the scene in the movies when he dies, he gets shot. I mean, it's a phenomenal. It still stands up today. I've seen that
Yes.
piece, 2 or 3 times. And yet I did like his antics, if you will, and I use that word in the best way, on stage somewhat. My favorite one is when he plays two people, in Kissing Cousins. But Kissing Cousins was actually a pretty damn good
Oh,
record
yes.
of all the records he
Oh,
did. He
yes.
didn't do it that often. So that's the story I talk about is him doing Kissing Cousins.
Uh-huh.
And then another story directly about Elvis that I talked to is part of the Elvis comeback special we talk about in 68. At the end, they were looking for something and they decided, hey, we're going to write a song for Elvis because he was certainly passionate and upset with Martin Luther King Jr. passing. And he did If I Can Dream, which
Yes.
to me is one of the greatest anthem
Yes.
records of all time. And
Yes.
it's in a chapter in my book called Anthems, rightly so. And that piece is there. I play it on my jukebox, which is behind me here all the time, and it brings a tear to my eye when I hear it, because there is hope. We can do stuff, no different than what you're doing with your book. You can help people moving forward, but that help starts from within, and I think that's what he was pushing with the hope. So that's why I told that story.
Amazing.
Two other stories I told about Elvis, not a lot of people know about. The first one, maybe so. One of the greatest singer, country, writers, pop, crossed over to the pop, done everything well. What you see is what you get from her is Dolly Parton. I have a lot of time for Dolly Parton. I think she's fantastic. Well, and she in one sitting she wrote two #1 records. One was Jolene, and this other record, you may know it, I Will Always Love You, which she did tremendously well, and it was her send off to Porter Wagner after leaving her show to go on her own. And then she introduced it again with the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, starring Burt Reynolds, which was kind of neat. But the song caught Elvis's attention, and he wanted to record it. I don't know if you know that. And so, but Colonel Parker goes to her and says, well, the way it works is we do that, we have to split the royalties. We have to share all the royalties for this. And Dolly turned him down.
That's right. Wait, I have to interrupt you. So, do you know when I found that out? I did not know that until I think it might have been 2 years ago. Okay, I found that out only 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And a part of me, this is weird, okay? A part of me said, you were right, Dolly. Okay, a part of me said that. But then the other part of me, the Elvis fan, and said, Dolly, but you could have made an exception just for this one because it was Elvis. And I'm wondering, and you may know the answer to this because I don't, did she ever regret that?
Oh, I actually dug up, I found some quotes on it, and
Okay.
they're in my book. I can't verbatim, but basically she says, she went back to Parker and said, oh, I'm so sorry, but I can't. And then her friends pressured her. Are you kidding? Elvis Presley doing your record? You're golden. You could, fine. But she couldn't do it on the principle, hey, I wrote this, I did this.
No.
Why, they'll get recording rights. I get that, but why should I give up my credits, writing credits, or split that down the line? And she said she tossed and turned. She was sick about it. Her last funny quote about that, though, was jokingly, she said, and I'm sort of glad I did. I could have bought Graceland. The record. It was, but that's Dolly. Dolly could get away with saying that. And of course, Whitney knocks it out of the park in 1981. So, and that, why I did that record was, if I mentioned in my new book, it's the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So I've moved up a generation. We're all aging. We got other people that remembered rock and roll. We got to, respect them too. But I have a chapter in it called Good or Even Better.
Okay.
And what it talks about is songs that peaked at #1 in the late 80s, early 90s, but they're actually remakes of songs before. I Will Always Love You is a classic example of just one of the 10 songs I highlight in that chapter.
Give us 2 more songs, just 2. I don't want you to tell everything. Give us 2 more songs.
2 more songs from that relate to that? Yep. Okay, I Think We're Alone Now.
I think
everybody remembers
now.
Yeah, everybody remembers Tiffany, and if you're from the 80s, in 87, she took it that big time, #1. But that's Tommy James and the Shondells.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really, it wasn't Tiffany to me. It was Tommy James.
No.
To me.
But how I stumbled on that one is I had my son-in-law here one day, and he's 44, okay?
My daughter's 44. Go ahead.
Okay, I said, I think for long. I said, oh yeah. I says I was in love with Tiffany because he was a young kid at the time, and it came out very impressionable. And I said, well, listen to this. And I put on Tommy James' version. He goes, what? I said, yeah, that's the guy that wrote it. So he was stunned. So I have a few of those ones. The other one that's really interesting, probably the most interesting one of them all, is the Supremes did You Keep Me Hanging On. It was their 7th #1 hit, okay? Vanilla Fudge takes it, puts it down slow-mo, takes it to #5, charted twice with Vanilla Fudge, and then it goes to England and becomes #1 in 1987. by Kim Wilde. And #1 on Billboard in '87, by the way. Wow.
Amazing.
So that's the type of, story. So what it shows is a good song passed the test of time. The key is the arrangement at the time that appeals to the audience.
Okay.
That's the magic. That is the magic. So that's exciting. So I'll tell you my last Elvis story only because it's you.
Okay,
all right?
baby, come on.
I have a chapter in the book called Should Have Been a Hit. Should have made it big. Okay? This is a song by a gal who in 1956, at the tender age of 15, just going on 16, is signed by RCA Records because she's like a Wanda Jackson. She's a rockabilly gal. She's got it all. Like, she is up there. Brenda Lee's coming on. This gal's there. Her name is Janice Martin.
Okay.
She got to be known and was given the permission to use the title as the female Elvis Presley. She had moves like, and she even wrote a song. You'll love this because you always say it. My Boy Elvis, Janice Martin, Janis. I know. Nobody knows her story. Why? She makes it on the Billboard charts, gets to number 35 in 1956 with a record called Will You, William. And all of a sudden she disappears. She tours all over Europe. She tours down. She's dancing. In fact, Colonel Tom Parker came to her and had to go to her parents, and he wanted to create a boy-girl act with Elvis. He could just see another spin-off of everything. And the parents turned Tom Parker down.
Wait
I know.
a minute. Hold on.
Look it up. It's an
Hold that
unbelievable
thought.
story.
I'm having some throat issues. Forgive me, but hold that thought. Gino, I need you to write this down. Give him the name again of the song and the girl.
Okay. Janice Martin, Janis Martin, Martin.
All
But I'll
right.
tell you the song that you really, Will You, William was the one it charted. So that's Will You, and then William spelled Willyum. Okay. It's a funny little thing, but it did make the bill in 56.
And then
But
My Boy Elvis.
she did My Boy Elvis. But the song that should have made it, she was secretly married in 56. 58, she's over in Europe, meets up with her husband, but comes back pregnant. RCA dropped her like a stone at 17 years old, and it was just tough sledding for her going on. In fact, you can even find old clips of her
All right.
on there.
Gino, make
performing
sure
coming
you
back.
write down My Boy Elvis.
Yep.
As soon as I'm done tonight, I didn't know
Yep,
any of this.
You'll love it. Now, but here's the big record, and it ties into my story
All
with
right.
the whole story. At the end of she does a song in 1960 on Palette Records out of Belgium. It's great. It is really good. It should have made it. And it's the best of her all, my humble opinion. And it's called, how ironic, Hard Times Ahead. And you can get that on YouTube. Yeah, Hard Times Ahead.
Gosh, I didn't even know about any of this. I thought
Yeah, I
I
know.
knew it all.
Well, that's the type of exciting stories I've got into. This time I wanted to share with people. But the backdrop, everybody understands the backdrop. Everybody knows about Elvis. But these angles, they're not. So it takes a while to research those things too, make sure you got it. And but I got introduced by Janet Martin Litz to a guy who runs Moments in Time spots on his radio, and he's really into the blues and R&B. And he said, "Here's a song by such and such." I go, "I got to look this gal up." So then I got into it. Then I dug out some rockabilly books from down south, and I found a ton about this gal. And then I watched her. They had a reunion, and you can actually watch her live performing just before she passed, and it's fantastic. And you can see what she had. There's something there.
Oh my gosh. So, all right, we're going to talk more about your books, but I have a question for you.
Sure.
All right, so growing up, who was your favorite artist?
Yeah, it's a great question. I grew up in a unique area because I grew up in Toronto, but I lived in what we call a border station because we would get Buffalo, Toronto, so we got the best both worlds. And so out of Buffalo, there's a station called WKBW, okay, out of Buffalo, New York. And there was a guy called George Hound Dog Lorenz. He was like the Alan Freed of Buffalo. This
Oh my
guy
God.
was a wild man. He played his own stuff, did his own thing, and was great. In fact, when Top 40 Radio came in and tried to shut him down, say you can only play this, you can only play that, he said, okay, the hell with you. So he went out and bought the last FM station in Buffalo and ran his own thing. So I bring him up because we're listening to this. Rock and roll really doesn't come to Toronto to CKEY and CHUM till about 1957. Okay, so I'm a young kid. I'm like 7 years old, but we got music on in the house all the time. So when I turn the knob one night and I get WKVW and I get the Hound, I'm going, what is this stuff? So this is the first time I've heard Elvis Presley and stuff. I'm going, wow, this is really good stuff. So I got into that sound, and then what happened was there was a creation of something called the Toronto Sound, and it was done by a DJ that came out of town there. He's still alive today. His name's Duff Roman. But he came to Toronto, came to CKY, but he went out one step farther. He went out and started promoting these guys and recording these guys in Toronto to see what would happen to them, to a point that he discovered David Clayton Thomas, Toronto boy, who became Blood, Sweat, and Tears. He discovered John Kay and the Sparrows. John Kay and the Sparrows became Steppenwolf. It was just two of some of the groups, and got a lot of them over into the U.S. markets, and even patrolled with some of them, and even did some touring stuff. So that's where I sort of came from. So I had this thing. I was sort of like one of these Dick Clark guys. If it's got a good beat and you can dance to it, I'm in. But then on the opposite side, what my parents listened to, I was weaned probably on the Platters. I know every Platters record ever done. I'm an old soul when it comes to that stuff. And I love their ballads. Tony Williams' voice, I still think is the most remarkable I've ever heard in terms of a lead singer for a group. And so that's where I sort of fell into. And then I like crossover countries. I'm a pretty eclectic guy. I mean, Marty Robbins, Jim Reeves, Johnny Horton. My parents all gave me that opportunity to listen to it. In fact, in the dedication of my book, it's to my late mother, my late father, my late brother, and the Sunday afternoons we spent listening to music.
Oh, that's beautiful, Tom.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. They're smiling down at you, okay?
Oh yeah, well,
You know it.
Our joke used to be, I grew up in an Ozzie and Harriet environment.
I love it.
And my only thing was, if my brother could have sang, we could have done okay.
That's great. That's great. So, wow. Okay. So now, do you have any record collections?
Well, I did for years, and behind my jukebox, there's a lot of original records in this. This is a 1957 Seabird behind me. I was a record collector for a number of years, and I was a big on one-hit wonders and stuff like that. But I collected stuff that I wanted. It's not that I had to have all the records by somebody. That's not it. There had to be something behind the record. Ironically, you think about it, there had to be a story or some background about it, and those are the records I write about today. So talk about an unusual,
that's pretty cool.
happening. So it happened, a long time ago, but I just didn't know it.
That's pretty cool. So now, talk a little bit about your first book. Tell everybody a little bit about what's in there, because that's a great
Well,
book.
the first one here, Moments in Time, really goes back into the roots of rock and roll, initially the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and how things evolved. If you look at music as a tree, okay, and the roots coming into rock and roll. I mean, if you listen to guys, they'll tell you the blues is the roots and the rest is the fruits. That's what they tell you going in. And then we had the various branches out. But it was getting there, and it wasn't easy times. I mean, my dad used to pick up the TV guide and look at it in the 50s stuff and go, oh, good, the circus is coming to town. Look at who Ed Sullivan's got to put on stage this week. Like there was a lot of backlash. A lot of people don't realize that in the late 50s, early 60s, with these groups. I mean, Steve Allen made a mockery of Elvis on his show with Hound Dog and the dog, right?
That's right. He made him dress in a tuxedo. I mean, and sing to a dog.
Yeah. And it was, so there was a lot. You got to understand, it wasn't just a smooth process. So I talk a little bit about that, but I also talk about what I've done with this book and my other book. And it's a nice segue into this is I've turned this into a presentation. Now I go out and I talk to groups. You see, when I wrote the book, the good news was I had time to do it. The bad news was because of COVID, I couldn't stand in front of 100 or 150 people and talk about the evolution of rock and roll, which is, I think, that's what really gets people going because, and these presentations aren't me lecturing, they're interactive. Like, what's the oldest rock and roll song you know? And then we sit there and we sit there with a chart and we'll flip off from the presentation and I'll just write down, what do you know? And then we talk about that. And it's interesting what I glean from the audience in doing that. So I'm taking it to adult centers, care facilities,
That's
and I'm dealing
amazing.
with music therapy now because it's phenomenal with Alzheimer's, and I even saw it in my father how music
My dad too.
brings it back. You understand what I'm talking
My
about?
dad, I have to share this with you.
Please.
So, in the beginning, the first couple of years, I was still able to take him to lunch. We kept him home. We took care of him till he died. Okay. My brother lived next door. I lived down the street. So, all right. Anyway, he didn't know what he just ate, but if I put on an Italian song, he could sing to it. It was
Oh,
amazing. And I used to bring a lot of entertainers into these homes around here in Mercer County.
yeah.
So I get it. And it's amazing what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I end up talking with a doctor of musical therapy just recently at Salmon Fraser University here in that. So I said, here's the way I want to approach this, and I am familiar with a number of care facilities, but going and and talking to these folks, I think makes a lot of sense, moving forward. So that's certainly one of my goals in doing that, and it just allows you just to extend this, just a little bit more, which is I think needs to be done, and it's all about giving back at this stage of our lives. At least certainly is for me.
So, at the stage of your life, I mean, you don't have to answer, but are you open about your age?
No, oh sure, I'm 74. Yeah,
74.
yeah,
All right, so I'm
yeah,
63. I thought we were very close. Okay, so anyway, that's pretty cool. So you are giving back. But
yeah,
honest to God, all kidding aside, what you're doing with like these nursing homes and all that is priceless.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
music, I always say this, Tom, if you have a 6 month old baby, 8 month old baby in like one of those bouncies and you put music on, they start to bounce.
yep,
It's innate. It's like we were born knowing music,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Totally concur. It's so true. It is so true.
Wow, that's incredible. So now, in these facilities, do people interact and say, this group, that song, I remember this, I love that?
Well, I'll give you an example. So I tested this out. So this is still early days, but not really because I usually get in small groups. I can do it. So I was in Collingwood, Ontario, which is north of Toronto, just recently. And we brought in, the guy says, well, I have this adult care center. I come in and it's assisted living. Some live on their own, some all different shapes, and different stages, of their, as they age. So I had, I guess 50 or 60 people in there, small group aged between 60 and 100,
Oh,
60 and
okay.
100,
Whoa,
right? So
okay.
it was great. So I have created an interactive PowerPoint on this where I can actually go in and play the songs as they're, so they get some feeling for it. And it was really fascinating talking to them, what's the first, rock and roll song you remember. And it's interesting how a song like Rock Around the Clock, for example, just comes out all the time,
Hold on. Before I forget, I have to share something about that real quick. Okay, so Danny Kaye was the youngest drummer for that group. Okay, Rock Around, and that was their song, and he just passed away 1 month ago
Oh dear.
today. I was
Hmm.
supposed to interview him. I got to know him very well, him and his wife, and he passed
Uh-uh.
away before the interview. So everybody, give a shout out, rest in peace, Danny Kaye. He was the youngest drummer for that song.
Wow.
Yeah, Bill Haley in
Wow.
the comments for that group. And he
Wow.
said this to me. He said this to me, Tom. He said, everybody thinks Elvis started rock and roll, but it was really them.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I talk about that in one of my stories in the first book, and was it really? So then I play. See, people didn't even know what it was
Oh,
back then on the Decca label, which they're on Decca, and I bring out an original. I have an original copy of that 45, so I bring it out, and then on the right side of it, it'll tell you what type of dance number it is. They put it as a samba or a waltz or something like that. Do you know what they described Rock Around the Clock as? A
mm,
foxtrot.
for real?
Yeah, that's what it says right on the label, Foxtrot. You can Google the label up and you'll see Foxtrot.
That's
That's what
so
they called
cool.
it. They
Okay.
didn't know what to call it.
Right.
It was all new days. However, if you go back to 1947 and Hank Williams' first charted record
Yep.
called Moving On Over and listen to it, Hank Williams Jr. will tell you, my dad got ripped off because it's almost the same.
But now Rock Around the Clock, that wasn't, they didn't do it originally.
No, there was one group that did
That's right.
a week before they did.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
It's I would call that a small technicality.
Right,
'Cause
right.
Bill Haley was scheduled to do it. They couldn't get in to do it. Somebody else recorded it, but then Haley, came in and did it. Yeah.
So very cool. All right, continue. This is so cool. So tell us a little bit more.
Okay. So in the 50s and then how things, move forward. I think the progression is fascinating to me. I mean, it was pretty raw and raucous, and it actually it really set the table. Ironically, when I wrote this, that for my next book about, because I start off, with the 60s. But the reason is, it was pretty tumultuous at the end of the 50s down, and then a lot of things happened. A lot of things changed. For example, Little Richard gives up his piano for a Bible. Okay. Jerry Lee Lewis
Go ahead.
marries his 13-year-old cousin, the height of his career. Chuck Berry gets nailed under the Mann Act for illegally transferring a 14-year-old, a minor, for immoral purposes, is the way it was written out. It's pretty interesting. So he's had to, and then sadly, Elvis gets drafted on December 20th, 1957. And probably the clincher really heard a lot of that. Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, Richie Valens, February 3rd, 1959.
Yeah, they died.
That hurt. And then all of a sudden, the top 40 radio stations came in and sort of took a little control, and we created this top 40 thing to the chagrin of many DJs who like to play their own deal. So all of a sudden, you take a look at the music in the early 60s. Not that it wasn't bad. It certainly got supported, but it's not as raw as the rock and roll was. In fact, my first chapter in my second book is called The Bobby Era. From 1958 to 1965, we were introduced to more than 15 Bobbies on the Billboard Hot 100.
Bobby Rydell.
Bobby Rydell, Bobby Vinton, Bobby V, Bobby Darin, Bobby Hatfield of the Righteous Brothers. Yeah, it just Bobby Curtola was Canada's champion. So all these guys all came out, and they all sounded, very similar, easy going, and it led into the girl groups became big in the early 60s and that. And we end up reverting back to the rock and roll days thanks to the British invasion, because the Beatles, the Stones, the Animals, the Kinks were all kids listening to Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, and all this stuff. So they brought the Rodners back, with the covers and their versions of the blues that they wanted to hear. So it is a fascinating period of time.
So I'm interviewing a man whose name is Bobby B, and he sings Bobby. So he sings all the Bobbies you just mentioned.
Wow.
He's really cool too. I got to interview Bobby Rydell a couple times actually. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, good for you. I wish I had that opportunity.
You ever want to say hi to him? I'll get you on a three-way one day. He's
Wow.
so sweet.
That's great. That is really great.
Yep, he's so sweet. So, all right. So now, in a nutshell, let everybody know, like, okay, because you talked about your both books and all that, but to make them want to buy both of them. So
Okay.
say, okay,
I
book
think-
one, book two. Go ahead.
All right. I think the uniqueness part that I kept true to both books is the interactive nature of the book. Meaning all the stories are only 2 pages. I mean, one thing
Right.
we've certainly got from the later generations is the whole fact that our attention spans are that of a newt.
You're right.
We're pretty tight with that. So I made the stories 2 pages, and they're all written like a mystery. So the idea is, hey, who is he talking about? You try to figure that out on the right-hand side of the page. You turn it over to the left-hand side, and you get that Paul Harvey, the rest of the story. And then in the bottom corner, give you an example, you get the QR code. So you put your smartphone over the QR code, instant gratification, and you hear the song.
So I didn't know that. That's in the second book
Nobody,
only?
there's no book, there are no books in the music, and I'm the first person that's ever done it,
Hold it.
interactive QR
That's
code
in your
books.
second book?
Yep. The
Okay.
second book, what's even more fun is I get to a situation where you're talking about compare the hits. So I'll talk about the two of them. Both QR codes are there. So you can
Get
pick the
out
artist you
of
want to hear.
here. All right, so guys, I have to talk. Listen to me. I read his first book. Dachi, the producer's laughing because he knows I get like excited with this stuff. I read his first book, off the charts, incredible. And he's right. You don't even have to have an attention span. You can read it, boom, 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 and you're like, wow, okay? Second book, you better get it to me as soon as it gets out, Mr. Tom. Okay, now that I
will.
know that, you can play the song just by putting your phone there. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? This is
No, just
unbelievable.
put your smartphone on, it goes right to the song.
This is unbelievable.
Yep. Yep. Both books do that. Yep. Totally did that. Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
All
So
right,
there we go.
I got to
Now-
go home and mess with the first one.
Okay. I just taken a look. I got to check my plug-in on my phone. I don't want to lose you, obviously.
Okay.
So can you just give me courtesy
Yes.
of a couple of minutes?
Yes, I can.
Thank-
I'll
thank
get
you.
a lozenge for my throat. Yes.
All right.
Dachi, talk.
I'm just over and amazed.
Okay, this is my producer, everybody. Isn't
Of-
this unbelievable?
Yeah, it's technology to the point where, God, you know what it reminds me of, Tom? It reminds me of when my children were growing up, and they had these little books, and you took the mouse or whatever it was over it, and
Yeah.
it would play a tune or some type of MIDI or something like that. But to actually have it go right to the song, that's just amazing.
Amazing.
Now I got to make sure this thing's working now.
Yep. I can hear you.
I know, no, that's fine. I'm just want to make sure why I'm having problems with this plug. So hang on for a second. Sorry, my dear.
Yep.
I love technology.
So, Doc G, I am telling you, his first book is off the charts, but the second one has Elvis, and I'm going to mention something else about.
Yes,
second
it
one.
was. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's just amazing as a DJ, or Tom, as a DJ, and also.
No, I can't hear you, Gino.
You can't hear me.
Yeah.
Can't hear me. As a DJ, can you hear me now?
Nope.
Mike can't hear me.
I can hear you good.
You can't hear me, Jerry, huh? Jerry
Right.
can't hear me.
If he can hear you, okay.
I was just going to say, Tom, as a DJ, a former
Yeah.
DJ and still a DJ, I just congratulate you on doing that, because
Thank you.
you created something where I don't know what to say other than it's just an amazing feat.
Well, it gets to my
Amazing.
background, I think. I was always ahead of the curve. I was in post-production in the entertainment industry for years. And when we went down to LA, we knew that we had to be able to deliver. And so we're one of the first guys to ever digitally transmit images down the pipe from Vancouver to LA in the
Incredible.
entertainment business. That certainly helped us move forward. So I've always had that, desire to tie, IT, if you will, into what I'm doing, but practical IT. See, the beauty of COVID was wonderful because my target group, older people, my age group, but they were cool with QR codes because of vaccination, records you had to have, or they went to a restaurant. Now they don't get a menu. They got to do smart codes. So they got into it. It wasn't a problem. And if not, their grandkids would show them how to use it, which is even funnier story, but
My grandson is 23,
Yeah.
and he is brilliant with tech. Brilliant. He's actually got a job. He didn't even
Wow,
finish
good for him.
college and was given a job, one job with this company. Now offered him full time. They paid him $55,000 for one app, Game Prep it's called, to do game stuff for tests for athletes.
wow.
He was still in college when they did that for him, and then they hired him full time now.
Wow.
Amazing. So he laughs at me. Like he'll show me and he'll be, me, Mom, just touch the button. Nothing's going to happen. It's not going to blow up. And I laugh and I'm like, I'm afraid. But Tom, all right, let's get back on the Elvis thing. In your
Hmm.
book, because you had sent me some pages, remember? And I was able to read some stuff.
Yeah.
You did more than 2 pages for Elvis, though.
No, I did. Well, there's 4 stories. He's in 4 stories.
That's
So
right.
so the four we talked about, which was to me even the right thing to do because it had the perfect blend and where I was going with
So
this
great.
journey this time around. It was great. But one of the things I did a piece. There's one chapter. It's called movie music. Okay, so Elvis is in that one because his cousins. But I also related it to a couple of personal uh, things that happened to me, all good. But one of the great stories is I'm a big fan. I always have been, and we are marketing and promoting the entertainment industry here to spread your own rumors. To me, that's what it's really all about. Nobody tells your story better than you do. So here we are up in Vancouver trying to entice people in LA. We're on the same time zone. Hey, you can shoot here. We can do it. So we would go and screen people who are interested, potentially interested in shooting in Vancouver, and we would create fam trips for them. Bring them out, entertain them, dine them. They could see the infrastructure we had, and it was incredible, the relationships we made, and it worked. I mean, we now have, I was involved in, we took it over $1 billion. It's a $3 to $4 billion industry here in Vancouver. On one of those trips, this story is in the book. On one of those trips, this guy comes in. He's in his early 70s, I guess. Then so he looked like an old guy to me. It's like 1991, and very polite guy, very nice guy. And he says, "This is very interesting." And him and I started talking. We talked a bit about music, talked a little bit of this and that. And he says, "Next time you're in LA, come and see me." It's like, well, let's do lunch. I think, yeah, sure, but I'll follow up on that and see how real. So I go down to, he's in the Beverly Hill area. I go down to that area and I see him and I go into his office. So I go into his office and I look at his office. I'm sitting, it's a modest office. I'm in the waiting room area, if you will. And there's all these books and magazines and stuff, and they all have to do with the Beatles. Every one of them has to do with the Beatles. So I go into his office and I said, Walter, his name's Walter Shenson. He's since passed. And we became actually good friends. And I said, Walter, what's this all about? He says, well, he says, when I was working in England, he had done the Mouse That Roared. So he had done some pretty big movies with Peter Sellers and that. And he said, I was in England, and these guys came to me and said, hey, we got these 4 lads. Would you want to produce a couple of movies for me with them? And this guy did Hard Day's Night and Help. Hard Day's Night cost $400,000 to make. Help was just a little more. They both paid for themselves their first day of release.
Wait. Wait. Did you say $400,000 to make the song?
No, to make Hard Day's Night, the movie.
Oh, the movie. Okay, I totally missed that. I was like, wait, gotcha.
No. Now, how the song got in the movie is really interesting. Walter and John Lennon are driving home after shooting one day, and and Walter says, "Hey, it'd be great if we could get a song, for the movie and that." And John says, "Well, leave it with me, mate." And he goes. The next morning, they come in the office, and he says, "Come on with me." And he goes in the room. By 8:30 in the morning, goes into the room. Paul's there. John takes out a matchbook cover, and that's Hard Day's Night.
So I have a question for you. The teenagers, Frankie Lyman and the teenagers. Do you have
Yeah.
anything about them in which book?
Frankie Lyman and the teenagers were definitely in the first book,
Okay.
and I talked about his brother actually in the first book as well, Louis Lyman and the Teen Chords,
Okay.
his younger brother, and they were great too. And their great story for me is that they one night not only did they sell out, but nobody sat down at the Apollo Theater listening to the both groups play. That's sort of where I was going.
Yesterday, guess who I interviewed? Jimmy Merchant.
Really?
Okay, yes.
He's still going?
He's still going.
That's
He's
fantastic.
in his 80s, and again, if you ever want to say hello to him, he would love it.
Wow.
He's-
That is so cool.
He's writing his books as well. But here's what I want to ask you if you knew, okay? Because I didn't know this until I started talking to Jimmy. Who wrote the song "Why Do Fools Fall in Love"?
I'm off the top of my head. I would think Frankie was involved in doing it,
Okay,
but no.
so not only was he not involved, listen to this story real quick. It's because I
Hmm.
got it right from the guy who wrote the song, Jimmy Merchant.
Wow.
All right. So Frankie wasn't even part of their group at first. Okay,
Yeah,
Jimmy
that I
and
knew.
okay,
That I knew.
Jimmy and
Yeah.
his bud,
Okay.
they were young. And then here
Oh,
comes this young kid, and then the producer was like, "Wait, we got to bring him in the studio." And the producer's the one who said, "He's got to be in your group, and he's got to be in the front." So at first they weren't all happy about that. Okay, he was young. So anyway, one of the other guys had a neighbor, a friend, a girl, had all these love letters in a bag and gave them to him and said, "Write a song about this." And they said, "Here, Jimmy." And Jimmy Merchant wrote the song, but never got the freaking credit.
Jesus
They put
Murphy.
Frankie Lyman's name on it, and
Yes.
then they added one of the other guys. Jimmy Merchant never got the credit for writing the song.
Yeah. And I wish that was the only story in the Naked
No,
City,
it's
but it's
not.
not. Yeah.
It's not. Bar,
Well, that's an eye opener for me.
yeah,
That's a good one to know.
incredible,
Wow.
incredible.
A sad one to know, I should
Yeah,
say as well.
yeah.
Because there's a big, I mean, Frankie Lyman was way ahead of his time. I mean, I had the pleasure of getting Dion's book when it came out in 1990 called The Wanderer, when Dion talked about clearing up his act. Like him and Frankie Lyman were really close. I don't know if a lot of people don't know that, but
Okay,
they
I
were
didn't. Yeah, okay.
at the front end. I mean, yeah, but close in a lot of ways because they took a lot of drugs together, to
Yeah,
be truthful.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And so, I mean, Frankie, is pretty, he I don't even like to use the word streetwise, but he became a guy of the street a lot quicker. I don't
So
think he
did
really even
Jimmy. So did
grew
they
up.
all after they were only together a few years. And
That's
they
right.
all ended up on the street doing drugs, selling drugs. It was a
Yeah.
mess,
Yeah.
you know?
It's true.
So
It's
Jimmy
true.
Jimmy got his
Yeah.
act together and
But
gave his
but
life
they
to the
set the
Lord.
bar. I mean,
Yes.
when you hear groups and say, geez, that sounds like Frankie Lyman, groups would take that as a compliment because they knew they had
That's
hit
right.
that bar. I mean, they're way ahead of their time. They were fantastic. I love the group.
Amazing.
So I have the original album. I have the album, The
That's so
Teenagers. Yeah.
cool. That is so
Just
cool.
called The Teenagers. Yeah.
The
It's really,
teenagers. That's right. It was just the teenagers, but we called it
that's right.
Frankie Lyman and the teenagers. Okay. So that's another thing that I didn't know. You know what I mean? I always thought it
Oh,
was Frankie Lyman and the teenagers until he set me straight.
yeah. Well, this is the interesting thing. So here I'm learning something today. I'm not surprised. It happens all the time. But I got deeper, more and more involved into what was really my escape, a passion for it. As I got more and more, the less and less I know. I mean, I get numbed by stories or great people
Amazing.
you meet along the way. Now, given that you're is it Gino who's your production guy and former DJ?
Gino's here. Yes, he's
Yeah.
yes,
So
and he's actually the
he'll
owner.
appreciate this. When you're a DJ on that and you're looking up stuff, the Billboard books were gospel. Like they're done by Joel Whitburn from Record Research. I mean, Joel started doing them in the mid to late 50s, and he kept going, made a deal with Billboard that he would be the record research guy and do it all in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin, just outside of Milwaukee. Fascinating guy. He just passed away a couple years ago, and his daughter Kim Blockhoff, she runs the record research now, and all those great Billboard books. I mean, I have a plethora of them, about 6 or 7 of them. Most DJs wouldn't be caught without them because they are the great reference go-to book. My book has become a reference book as now. But Joe and I have a very unusual story, and I wrote it in the book. It's in the epilogue of this book, and it's about Joel Whitburn. It's a tribute to Joel Whitburn. What happened? Early 2000s, I'm on the internet. It was pretty much the wild, wild west then. I'm going through all this stuff, and I look, Joel Whitburn's want list comes up. I mean, here's a guy who's got 300,000 45s, okay? But he's got a want list of about 6 records on there. I go down, I got that record. So I got a hold of them. Not only did I have the record, I had the cover jacket and the label, and it was in mint condition. We connect, and we made a deal. The deal is this: he sent me out his latest book, which was from 1955 to 1999, but $100 book of it, all the latest updates to the pop singles. I'd send him the record,
Of course.
and we did it in the mail. But the other deal was he had to take a picture in front of his library at the book and sign the picture and send it to me.
Listen, every entertainer that buys my book, I'm like, please take a picture of you holding my book and send it to me, and they do.
Yeah. No, that's good, but it's great, and it's and it wasn't so part of the validation, but I could go, here's Joe Whippert. So that picture I put in the book. The topper for me was I got a hold of Kim. I let her read the whole thing, and she wrote back, and she wrote a quote in my book, the best tribute I've ever read about my father, which meant a lot
That's
to me.
amazing.
And she said, Tommy, you sent me a couple of pictures of my dad I had never seen before,
So
which was
beautiful.
pretty cool.
Oh no, that's really amazing. Tom, have you ever heard? We still have a few more minutes. Have you
Yep.
ever heard of a man named Walter Santos?
Walter I've heard of Nick Santos, who used to be
No?
the lead in the Capris.
Right.
No?
No. Okay. So, and Michael D'Amore is the new lead singer of the Capris. Okay. No. So Walter Santos opened for Dion back in the day. All right. So and he was married to Dion's sister at one point. So let me tell you
Dee Dee,
about Walter
okay.
real quick.
Okay.
So Walter Santos is now a godly man. He's also a minister and an incredible singer of doo-wop. Wait till you hear. He was going to jail for a very long time. He was young. And the judge said to him, "You are not a criminal. You're just an idiot. You got to get back on that stage. So you're going to be peeing in a cup for 2 years." Okay. So Walter Santos goes to Vegas or wherever he went, whatever, and he meets Dion. And he's going to be opening up for Dion one night. And Dion's in the back reading his Bible. And Walter goes in the back and says, "Dion, how'd you change, man? I got to change." And he says, "The man upstairs." He says, "Sit down." So here he is. Now he's preaching the word of God to Walter. So Walter accepts it. And he ends up getting very close to Dion, and he marries his sister. So then years later, it didn't work out, whatever. But he messed up again and again and again. He was young, you know? So then he finally got back on track. The guy's now in his 70s. So he gets back on track, gives his life to the Lord. And now what he does, and you got to Google Walter Santos, you will freak out. Every doo-wop song, the music is the same, and he puts words to God.
Oh my.
It is amazing what he's done. So Walter Santos, okay?
All right. All
Check
right.
him out.
Hang on.
So now tell everyone, Tom, first of all, how they can order your books.
Okay. Well, there's two ways. The best for my friends south of the border, the best way to go is Amazon. It's on Amazon worldwide.
Okay.
So that's the easy ones. A lot of people in Canada, some people who really want a signed copy. I have my own website. It's fairly sophisticated, and it's mitstories.com. So that's like moments in time stories.com. So mitstories.com. Now, also on there, for people who would like, I still write a weekly piece every
Yes,
week.
I get it all the time. Yes.
You get it all
I
the
love
time.
it.
But if anybody else would like to get that, you can go on my website, and it's free. Just click in, and I'll put you on the list. So you and if one of my areas under news, all my stories for that I put on the last 3 years, they're all there. They can click on and listen to them, and there's a link to the YouTube, link to the song. It's all about sharing this stuff. It really is. And I should also tell you that I'm very proud of, thankful for it, and I got to thank Norman Knight.
I love Norman Knight. Oh my gosh, I got to get out there. He wants me to come out there.
Yeah, well, my book now, in addition to being in the gift shop at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, is in the library and archives of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a reference book.
Yay, I'm so excited. That's so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm really pleased about that, and it's become a reference book for many DJs. A lot of guys that have, I mean, you're the first person, by the way, and that got the scoop about me formally talking about my new book. So congratulations on that, and thank you for being so forward.
Did you guys hear what he
doing
just
so.
said? Okay, Hamilton Radio, the Geri Petito Show. We're the first to get it. Okay, guys.
There you go,
This
first
is
guy.
so cool. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So and I will. They want this down at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame too, so that'll go down there as well. So,
Maybe we can go
I'm
the same
thrilled about that,
time.
but
Maybe we
I'm
can.
really excited about standing up in front of people again, and because I've been a speaker for years and motivation, all bunch of things in my life. And uh, this, it's like not even working. It's just like talking, but it's about reaction, like watching the body, watching the faces of people, and knowing that you're connecting. You can't put dollars and cents on that,
Oh my
Jerry.
God. Maybe you and I could go meet Norm and Knight the same time. You never
Oh,
know.
that's doable. I've been to Cleveland enough
I
times.
I know I
So,
haven't met him. I have to. His interview with me was
oh,
amazing. I want to go.
and what you see is what you get. He's a
Yes.
really good guy.
So, all right. Before we close, Tom, I don't want you to get off saying, "Oh, I wanted to say this. I forgot about this." Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Well, I think in life and why I went through and did all this stuff is a simple thing. I actually talk about it in my book because a gentleman I met once and he said something that really stuck with me, and I've always done it. And I think you do it as well. Do what you
Yes.
love what you do,
Yes.
and give more than you promise.
I love it. Oh my gosh, I'm going to read a poem out of my book. Okay? It's time. And the reason why I read this poem during most shows is because everybody messages me after they see my shows and they say things like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I could write like that guy. I wish I could write poems like you, Joe. I wish I could sing like that lady. I wish I could dance like them." And I want everyone out there to know that everyone has something to offer. We are all born with a gift, every single one of us. Okay? And listen, you just got to figure out what it is. And I don't want anybody out there to feel like they're not worthy. Okay, please don't feel that. Okay, so this poem that I wrote is called "Utilizing Gifts and Talents." Okay, please, if that's you right now listening, listen to every word of this poem. Okay. We are born with talents, we are born with drive, with different gifts to help us thrive. I knew early on I was born to draw and paint, to also write poetry, and to talk without restraint. Our gifts and talents should all be used, God's gift to us, not be abused. We can go far in life for sure, using our gifts to go on tour. All our talents should be used to create ourselves and more, but then our job's to share them, to even up the score. You see, in life, what's needed is not just for ourselves. Once our gifts are mastered, take them off the shelves. A living we can make by spreading them around, not just for the money, but to spread a peaceful sound. Don't take for granted the gifts you're given. Go out and spread the joy. Our gifts are not to be held back for us to self destroy. Put your efforts forth. Do not hesitate. All your talents, my friend, are never second rate. Never hold them back, or you will surely die. Maybe not in body, but your soul will cry. Our gifts were made to share, our talents made to soar. Go through life enlightened, and then you can roar. Be proud of who you are. Be happy you're alive. Once again, my friend, your gifts will help you thrive. By putting efforts forth, not keeping them at bay, your name, Tom Locke, baby, will live forever, forever and a day. So go through life excited for what you sure can give. To yourself and others is your reason to live. Our grave will be quite lonely, but our legacy lives on. So make sure people smile with the breaking dawn. And Tom, that's what you're doing, kiddo. You are absolutely making people smile. What you have done is unbelievable. Both your books. I can't wait for book 2. And again, for bringing Elvis into it, baby. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And book 2 will be out in September on Amazon worldwide, and
Right.
we're just in the final proofs, and I'll probably finish that off this week. So I'm pretty excited about it, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and share this. And I hope that we get more people involved in doing it. And it's a solution for some people in the marketplace. It could be their grandparents,
Right.
their brothers, their sisters. Who knows? Christmas is coming. You got to think about all these things. But most importantly, is what you're giving here is a piece of people's lives.
That's right. Thank you, Tom. I want to thank you again for honoring me with this incredible interview, man. You are off the charts, and what you're doing out there is amazing. So never stop doing it, okay? I
Thank you
just
so
love
much,
you.
Jerry. All the
I just
best.
love you. All right, Gino, take us out. Thank you, babes.
Ladies and gentlemen, Geri Petito.
I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. And in time this too shall pass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Geri Petito taught the class. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. Loves the answer, the greener grass. I'm not an addict, I'm just an ass. One day at a time, free at last.
When you don't know just what to do.
Just what to do, just what to do.
If what you're feeling is really true.
It's really true, is it really true?
Just keep your ideas safe and sound.
Safe and sound, safe and sound.
That's exactly how change is found.